I see a trend.
I thought they were getting you for you to do your little trend thing.
I am a trendy, very trendy.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna see this. Year.
All right, good morning and welcome to another meeting of the Delaware County Council budget hearings. If we could do roll call, please, that'd be great.
Mr. Webb. Mr. Flanagan.
Present.
Mogul.
Yes.
Hughes.
Here.
Wyatt.
Present.
Camp.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Here. All right, so when we left last Friday, the plan was for Matt and I to kind of come up with some different plans and options, re the salary, since we had our primary focus during our previous three meetings more on the actual other line items. So Matt and I met on Sunday and spent 2.5 hours working on just trying to match up the salary study levels and mid numbers to the lines in our budget books. Pardon me. So we worked on that and kind of came up with a plan to tackle. And then this week I worked on getting all the rest of that data in and coming up with some different options that Matt and I talked about. Matt and I we talked Wednesday and we talked yesterday too, to kind of go over everything. So I handed out to the council some numbers and such, but before we get to that, in the meantime, we'd received a couple emails with some proposed cuts and changes that I did reflect in the numbers that we'll discuss here momentarily. But Shelley, if you want to go first and just share, review that email. I don't know if all the council members had an opportunity to read it and or adjust their books accordingly prior to today. And Eric, you'll be on deck.
Hi, Shelley Harvey, Public Defender's Office.
Hi, Shelley.
Good morning. So Public Defender's budget it's on page 18, if you guys want to flip to that page. If you want to just kind of go through your email, or if you have a better way, if you want to go through just the numbers, whichever is
I
easiest.
don't. In fact, I don't have the email in front of me, but I, of course, have the new proposed budget.
That works too.
But we took all the attorney's salaries, the request down to 52. Of course, our chief public defender salary is mandated. Let me get my salaries ready.
I'm sorry.
Our legal assistants, the external midpoint was 39.9, and we took them to 42 because two reasons actually. And they may be valid to you, they may not, but they're legal.
Which individual is this again? I'm sorry.
The legal assistants.
Okay.
Our legal secretary is P144 and C173.
I'm sorry, what was the amount?
42,000. And I'll tell you why we did that. They are legal assistants preparing legal documents for the attorney's review, preparing plea agreements, diversion agreements. But the big reason, and I know you guys probably don't want to hear this, is because our investigator, his external midpoint was 46,752. And so we took him to 46.7 because that was his external midpoint. And he is a true investigator for our office, but he's only been there 6 weeks, or maybe a little less than. We could not, in our minds, Sam and I's minds, ask for that much less for the legal secretaries than we would have been for our PD investigator. We felt that there was too big a gap if we went with that external midpoint for the legal secretaries. So that's why we asked for 42 for the legal secretary. And then so bringing down and my salary, I think I explained in the email, was based on my duties and being compared last year to the CASA director. And I thought it was more, and I think you guys kind of thought it was more, because I do supervise staff and all the budget stuff and all of the financials, and her suggested salary was 53.1, and so I asked for my salary to be 53. So that, with lowering the attorney's request, of course, helped lower our FICA and PERF. And since I came down on our insurance to be more accurate than I was last year, I came in at our proposed budget is now, what was it, 51.7 more than last year, which is 40% reimbursable. And that gives 25 county employees raises. And I know you all will recalculate the raises and do what you think is fair. But we thought that was a pretty fair proposal considering what we initially proposed for our budget. And we sat down and, I mean, we went through this line item by line item and we discussed it at length, Sam and I did. And our new proposal was what we thought was fair, but still you were able to give us all raises in our office. So especially with the insurance, our portion of the insurance going up, we just thought that this proposal was fair.
Okay, so to summarize,
Numbers, may I ask numbers? She's read over some numbers and I'm not sure I have them marked appropriately. So for the public defenders, did she say change them from 55, what we originally changed them from, to 52?
Yes.
Is that correct? Correct. Okay, and then 42 for the legal secretaries?
Yes.
And did the health insurance amount change from what she requested?
No,
Okay.
no, it was just a change from last year.
FICA and PERF amount.
Yeah, I reduced those.
legal secretary has been reduced as well.
Yeah, I got those 42.
And tell me again about the public defender investigator. Just you indicated no change or change to 42.
No change from what we initially requested.
So what were your new FICA and new PERF?
My new FICA is for our county general, $110,130.01. But I know we work in round numbers.
So do you want to do 110, 131?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the PERF would be 161, 237.
Thank you.
And then our supplemental budget, the only change was the reflection of the salary suggestion and her reduced PERF and FICA because one of our employees gets paid out of our supplemental fund, the perf and FICA do.
All right, do we have any questions from council on this one?
What was your final budget request?
The total
The new,
for
I should say the new one.
our general fund is $2,048,329.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you. Any more questions from,
I think we might be good.
okay, thank you.
Thank
Did we
you.
get a copy of that? We're gonna reconcile against what they're, this is essentially redoing our budget.
Here, I'll just, for you, for this,
What was that final total again, Matt?
3,000,000.
Yep.
48,329.
Off somewhere.
2 million, I
are you
apologize.
just using your destiny?
Yeah.
Thank
2 million.
2 million.
Right, no, I got that.
That's-
I'm just off by a few dollars.
It's the 16237, it was 16340. Actually, the total she gave is 16340 for,
1,340.
yeah. I like. Because she changed like per week down.
I felt a body.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. Let's move on, prosecutor's office.
Page
For
15.
salary. Prosecutor starts on page 15.
You make two, one. Three, Tita.
Tanya, do you have everything you need now? Oh, you will?
I believe I'm on my way.
Okay, you want us to give you a second?
He can talk,
You sure?
I think.
All right.
I went back and watched some of the meetings, and particularly about or what Mr. Hughes had to say, and I found some wisdom in what Mr. Hughes suggested and spoke about. So I wanted to get this to you earlier this week, but it's been an extremely busy week in the prosecutor's office, and I was able to email this out to you last night, and I put a copy of it on your desk this morning. Basically, the three concerns that I heard from regarding the matrix, pay matrix for the deputy prosecutors, the concerns are that there's a huge jump in salary for those 2 or 3 employees who have been there for 20 or more years. To Bill's point, I think it was a jump of 50,000 or so. That there was a large gap between year 1 and year 25 on the matrix. Given that gap each year, I believe it was just Mr. Kant's point that the salary for each employee would fluctuate each and every year. So I reworked the matrix given those concerns, and I have them in the email. And so you start with 0 years of experience, and then you have 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 15 to 20. I got the 95 base salary suggestion from Mr. Hughes when he and I were talking on the 6th of September, that meeting. And then on the next page of the email, I talk about the cuts. First one is, I realized that I was trying to address 2 problems at once: retention, or recruiting and retention, and the fact that we're understaffed. I think, as I said last time, I'll deal with the understaffed issue next. So I'm willing to give up the 2 employees that I'm asking for now in order to stop bleeding and triage the, recruiting and retention. So if you take those 2 employees out, granted, I was not a math major, but that's $129,242 plus benefits for both. I agreed with Mr. Hughes and capped the years of experience for base salary in the matrix 20 years and lowered that from on the original 20-year base salary was 126,305. I lowered that to 115,000. So that would cut $60,207 to 2025 budget. And if we were to pay and budget using this matrix, those stipends for the deputy prosecutors that we established last year, 15,000 from the general fund and I think it's 15.5 from the general fund and 15 from the lit, for a total of $35,000. So totaling those up, that's a total of $224,449, which more than covers the pay matrix or the revised matrix that I'm proposing. I also, in the email, discussed that at last hearing, I don't know which day it was, but I was able to find about $30,000 this year to give back. I did mention, for what it's worth, that in terms of an operating balance, I did agree that with Mr. Webb that 6.5 would be a lot. So given all of that, I think my cuts alone pay for the revised matrix. I think my entire opinion, I did this late at night, I think it addresses a lot of what Mr. Hughes' concerns were. I appreciate your insight in that.
Well, I was still working on the stuff that I was printing out for council today when the email came through. So I messaged Matt. I was like, "Did you see this?" And so I went ahead and already made those changes. And so when we get those numbers, those adjustments have been made. So, and I knew the email was coming, so I kind of was waiting.
And once I had to wrestle up 3 young kids and get them to bed and do all that.
Now, do we want to go through and just verify each? Do you have your budget book that we could go
I
through
do.
and like actually verify which deputy prosecutor is making?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I failed to. So I also attached to the email the revised matrix as well as a spreadsheet that shows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What each step makes.
I just want to make sure we're matching up like line 102 with whoever 102 is. Maybe you know.
Yeah, and if you can just read them and read them out, we don't have.
Yeah, so we just need their job number and the new adjusted salary amount. Like if we start at the top of your sheet.
Okay. So that top of my sheet would be, okay, Michael Bozian, right?
We just need to know what their line number is.
I have him in as 118101.
All right.
Sorry, go
The
ahead.
line 118.
It's 105,000.
That's the new.
Yes.
105. And Alright, so then we have a,
Did you say skip Zach?
yeah, cause he's,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. So let's see.
Mr. Denny?
So he would be 103, 101,
okay,
115.
so,
And the next one would be, excuse me, 102, 101. At 106, 50. And the next one, 106, 101. That is 115. Skipping me.
got the one
That,
in
that,
lit,
the next one's in lit.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Or do you wanna skip the lit ones? That'd be easier for you, Elizabeth, if we skip the lit ones?
And
We can go with lit, lit,
go ahead with
Yeah.
lit. Okay.
lit's on page 51.
Fine.
119, 101?
Yeah, thank you. 119, 101 is 116, 150.
And then 102?
Not in lit,
There's another one.
oh. Down,
Are we still on lit 102, 101?
Yep.
Okay. I actually just hired somebody. That was the open one. That would be 95.
102,
And what's
And
now,
that- 55.
95. While we're in lit, 107, 101 is 112, 200.
Is that Mr. Romero?
Yes.
112? 200. There.
Okay. And I guess back to general fund.
I have a quick question there, Eric.
Yeah.
On the line we just did, the 112, 200, how many years of experience? Based off 2 sheets here, I got him less than 10.
Let me go back. What was the number again?
112, 200 online, lit 107.
So small, I can, bear with me. I have 8 years, but he scored a level 2 on the,
It should be 107.1. 100 then?
yes, that is
Okay.
correct, I'm sorry.
Alright, fine. 7,
7 and lit.
Right. Oh. Okay.
Yes, that is correct. I'm sorry. And then general fund 115, 101. 95. And 104, 101. 107, 100. One 101. 100,000.
I already have.
It was 103, 101 maybe. Yeah, that's 103. Not 130.
115 and 103,
Right.
and so then the 113 is, tell me again,
113 is 100. And the final one, is from the, family support. Page 34. So from the family support budget, 102, 101. That one is 105,000. And that's the one that's 66% reimbursed.
While they're recalculating, thank you, Eric. This is very much what I was looking for. Plan, subject, finding the money.
I think when you and I were talking about it, I couldn't conceptualize it in my mind. I went back and watched the tape. And with help from Lisa, I heard what you were saying and put it together.
All right. Do we have any additional questions or comments for Eric? All right,
Thank you.
appreciate it, thank you. So let's move on. So the little packets that I handed out to all of you, prior to the meeting. So on the first page, you'll kind of see an example of what the different plans, and none of these are set in stone. This was just to kind of give us a visual to understand what some of these ramifications look like. They're not perfect. I made sure I put a note on there because there were still some jobs that Matt and I were not able to match up with the salary study. I'll double check real quick if any of those were in general. And for the most part, we're focusing only on general for these, because kind of whatever plan we decide to do here does trickle down to some of those others. Stand by for 1 second. Had me blank. Just a couple in court. Well, I'll follow up with those to make sure we get those fixed, so, or added. But for the most part, it kind of gives you a general idea of what this looks like. Different plans, so on that second page, you'll see the pivot table that shows what our 2024 budget was, what was requested in 25, and then the sum of the 4 current proposed plans. And towards the bottom, if you want to see what was cut from the 25 request, we have those numbers at the bottom of each column. And Matt prefers to see what we added, so I added that note there. So whichever way you like to look at it, that information is provided to you there. Now, this is just the salaries. This is not taking into consideration FICA and PERF, which on the last sheet I gave you, I know it's small font, but I try to get it all on one page, and I didn't have legal size paper, so I apologize. But I figured out FICA and PERF for each of those plans, so you'll see total numbers on there too for those different options. So essentially, oh, and I did create a similar table for lit because we have those positions in there too. So some of the things before I go through these, and Matt had some questions and comments too. So Matt, if I forget anything, I'm in. So some of the comments and questions I want to make sure we acknowledge before we go into this is making sure we fill in the missing midpoint and level classification info, make sure those are on the same page, making sure FICA and PERF will be adjusted accordingly. And Ed actually may have you talk on this one. We're going to need to consider increasing health insurance in our 2025 budget, which has nothing to do with the salary part here, but it's another consideration we need to make. And do you want to explain that one real quick?
This is where the 10% was presented. So the insurance company, Gilman, came in, Sylvester, and he actually suggested a 10% increase. And I know Sarah worked real hard on our budget. She worked with our office several hours, but there wasn't an increase in the commissioner's budget on the insurance line item. Or I suggest increasing that by 10%. I'm not even sure she had that number before she submitted it. I'm not sure she had the 10% increase that the insurance company was suggesting. So I would suggest you
Commissioner's
consider.
budget, we did not increase health insurance.
Right.
We're saying we should increase it 10%.
Right. I'm not sure she had that number before she did her budget.
Yeah, I didn't think.
So she's just gone over based on history. I will say, based on history, the commissioner's budget has been fairly close every year. However, out of the last 6 years, the council's cut their budget 4 years. And in every year, the commissioners have had to put money back into that fund to shore it up so there'd be enough money to pay the health care. So going forward, I would suggest when the commissioners have a number, they get their numbers from the actuaries. I would consider leaving that number as it is.
Overall budget.
Correct. And you obviously can do whatever you want, but every time you cut it, they come back and have to put money into it.
Do we have a report on what our claims experience has been this year? So far.
I think the only comments that were made by Mr. Lester that based on all those numbers, I mean, I haven't seen the numbers, but based on what he said, we need to increase by 10%. So for the rest, I don't know what that number is.
So it would roughly from 3,169,650 to 3,486,615.
And Ed brought it to my attention that we will have an appropriation coming before council, move money into this health insurance line this month, right?
And it-
300,000.
and it's not a move. What's happened in the past, I'd like
Sure.
is oftentimes there is an email sent from the auditor's office, the commissioner's office, asking if money can be moved from their expense line, 701 revenue. Okay, so I think that's where the misinterpretation of the money comes from. It's never not okayed by the commissioners, always okayed out, we always put claim for that, but money moves out early, per se, okay? So it's like, got this money in the health line, but when the auditors have asked for money from it, all that does is kind of give you an advance, 10% advance. Doesn't increase the budget, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't increase the amount that's there. So the appropriation coming next, true appropriation for this is a true appropriation, because we can't keep moving money from this budget line. Like, first it's being reduced at the budget, we have a list of years that it's always reduced. Then we're getting an advance, say, that's how I look, as an advance, put that 4701 to cover bills near the end of the year. But that's still gonna always run you shorter and shorter and shorter. So
Right.
that's, and so we need to put new money in there, so that's short.
We also need to consider the cost to the employee and looking at that total, because if we're gonna be raising salaries this year, then that number's gotta potentially,
And the
because it's
fact
only getting
that-
bigger and it's only gonna continue to get bigger. I also think that, there was some talk about the Apex, and I did some inquiry relative to the city, they use Apex. Has there ever been a discussion with pooling resources with the city through Apex, if we're gonna be both using the same brokers? They're different brokers, they're different people, but they're the same company. Anybody,
Commissioner Henry, do you have have you ever looked at partnering with the city to pool everyone together for a cheaper rate? Okay.
I mean, this, you know, in the current environment, this is never going away, so.
What would that do for it?
Well, I mean, if we can, I don't know necessarily, I'm just saying, like, if we take 500 and some employees or whatever the number is here, add them to the city, and when we negotiate those rates, if they're pooling those resources, can we bring that number down?
There's no,
Or at least level it versus having to see these 10% here over here.
there's no automatic administrative savings.
They're paying somebody, we're paying somebody, I don't know. The discussion probably just needs to be, at least, I would hope, at least broached, see if there's any gain. And that might include, I don't know, is MSD on them too? Yes. So, I mean, it's just a thought. What is our percent? Does anyone remember what our percent paying for health insurance is?
Lee, do you know
I'm sorry.
what percentage the employees pay in?
It's
They pay into?
10%. Next time, 90, 10, what?
90/10 is the breakdown.
But to understand the type of policy we have compared to, there's 3 levels of insurance coverage for medical, and we, as a county, provide the lowest level. That's what the gentleman said up there that day. So in other words, I think he described it as catastrophic insurance. I give you an example on your short-term disability. Ours doesn't kick in for 30 days. So what that means to you as a employee if you were to have a broken leg, you can't show up to work, and you're off for 2 months, what that means is you don't get any pay for a month. That month, you can lose your house or car. And that whole thing is supposed to protect the employee from having a major issue that creates financial problems for the family, and this really doesn't do that. Most companies provide short-term disability, typically a week, or 7 days. So when he says it's catastrophic insurance, I understand what he's talking about. But throughout that whole, our whole policy, the way we got structured, and I understand why we do it, to save money. But understand that when the employees pay 10%, the reason they're paying 10% is because they need that money to live off of during these times of addressing health issues.
Same with
I mean, we're gonna have employees potentially lose their home because they
Sure.
can't make the house payment because they don't get money for a month. And then when you do get 60%,
I guess my question would be, what would the next level up look like?
it's a lot more money.
I would assume so, yeah.
I say a lot, it's all relative, but
Sure.
Yeah.
Do-
But the average in the market for other jobs and other positions, and if they went to work for another business outside the county, you're gonna pay 30 plus
And-
health
and I
insurance
think,
as an
I think
employee.
that'd be more attainable if, well, look at the city has like a blue cross blue shield type policy. So they've got the A bracket, we've got the C bracket. And I'm not sure what percentage they actually pay off the top of my head, but, I could see paying more if you had a better product. Paying for a lesser product, pay more for it. I'm not sure if I really understand the logic.
Well, part of the reason why we should be shopping our health insurance every year, in my opinion.
Okay, so do we want to, adjust our health insurance and increase it to that 3,486,615 for next year, or? I personally think it's smarter to do it now than for us to be asking for an appropriation, especially as we're really trying to focus on, getting salary increases in place. So I would agree that I think we should, but
We're gonna do a budget.
do it. Okay, so let's change that number to 3,486,615. So again, that is 3,486,615. And Keita, that's the number you got too, right? Okay. All right,
And 3 million,
3,486,615.
Do we want to, I guess, for the peanut gallery to try to go through the A, B, and C, or
Yeah,
A, C, and
Yeah, I do. That's gonna be next. I wanna go through these comments, questions real quick. So the next thing I think we need to figure out and decide is what we're going to do between highway supervisor 1 or the superintendent role. We haven't really addressed that at all. We've talked to Tommy a lot. We've talked to Tommy a lot. And I feel like we probably need to make that decision here because that'll play into these salaries. Go to the,
going to highway and stuff.
yeah.
and currently we have them in there twice, right?
And which funds are they all in? We're looking at all the places. Let's look at one, let's look at 176.
What's the other one?
Matt, have totals for you real quick on that health insurance. For claims, we paid $2,751,657. I'm just rounding up in the change. Monthly premium, 581,401. That's
That
today.
2,700, that's the total as of now.
2 million. Yes, and I will note, we're in the last quarter of the year, and that's most, everybody needs to get their stuff taken care of.
Mhm.
Which, first one was 2 million what?
2,731,657.
So that 300, the appropriation request,
Right.
that's just an estimate, basically, for the rest of the year.
That's the best we can come up with.
I believe these positions are listed as supervisor one and,
Bridge supervisor.
do we have superintendent or was it bridge
Got all
supervisor?
three.
Page 41, you got supervisor.
Yep.
54, you've got supervisor. Page 41 is supervisor one, and half of it comes out of there, and half of it comes out of 1176. Page 54.
That makes for a total of 84.
The office manager and payroll deputies are also split like that, just FYI.
So the only question, the title, is that all we're?
The title will help determine the salary.
That's the only, because we only have it in that one time, right? Or did you say you put it in twice? Do we remember?
Well, no, what Eugene said is, I think, right. Half of the 84 that he.
Right, no, I know about the half and half, but we didn't do like a superintendent role, right?
We did not,
We just
and
did
then
supervisor one and supervisor two,
there still
right?
is a bridge supervisor in the Cume Bridge total, which also needs to come out, if that's the case, right?
Correct. If you go with the supervisor or superintendent, at the 42 out of the bridge and 42 out of the highway, then on page 41, the bridge supervisor at 60,700 would be taken out.
Which
I have a
page?
question. Would it be
Oh,
taken
supervisor.
out, or would it just not be filled?
Well, we wouldn't budget for it this year, because he's sitting in that role.
Right. And I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Tommy gets injured, can't work another day in his life tomorrow. Is that something that we'll have to put back in, or we tackle that when we get there?
I think currently the way we're approaching this is superintendent is the position. Under the superintendent, there's typically a bridge supervisor and or a highway supervisor. Currently, we only have a highway supervisor. And so if Tommy were to leave, we would hire a new superintendent at a minimum, I would assume, and then have to make a decision on the other one. But
All right,
we're,
I'd support your suggestion then.
any
like Commissioner
conflict
Henry
with it?
Yeah,
I'd like Commissioner Henry to weigh in on this, the whole discussion.
I would agree with what you're talking about. I think, with the superintendent slash bridge foreman we have now, you don't need the bridge foreman spot. However, in an event that would change years down the road, that may come back at some point. So I would leave it in, but just not fund it. Would be my suggestion.
Job title of superintendent makes sense to you?
Yes.
I'm good.
all right, so final answer. So on page 40, gentleman over here, I didn't hear anything from you guys, so
And that will be at 84, correct, with no overtime?
yeah.
Okay.
I would weigh in on the commissioner direction. If we have the
So then if we're going with that and changing, so we're changing supervisor one, superintendent, that's getting paid out of both Hume Bridge and MVH, half and half, correct?
Yes.
And then we're eliminating, we're just
Not
unfunding
funding.
the bridge supervisor, line 105, so that's 60,000, we make 0. Change supervisor to superintendent. Okay,
I have something else too.
odd for everyone.
In the motor vehicle fund, then, is the supervisor too,
That's Troy, right?
is that an exempt position?
Yes, right.
It is non-exempt,
It's non-exempt?
It's not exempt.
yes.
I'm sorry, what's his new title?
Superintendent.
So we've also double counted here on office manager, payroll deputy. Is purchasing agent also in both, or just,
Yes, so the office manager, payroll clerk, purchasing agent, and garage foreman are paid half out of bridge and half out of highway.
which foreman, highway foreman?
No,
Garage.
garage foreman.
Read those off. Very,
Purchasing agent.
Office manager,
we're on page 41, right?
Well, or 50, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
office
so
manager.
it's office manager, payroll clerk, purchasing agent, and garage foreman.
We have that as payroll deputy, should it be payroll
Both
clerk?
of that.
Payroll
One of them
deputy,
out.
yeah.
Payroll
Okay.
deputy,
Yes.
right.
Sorry.
I'll make-
Taking that 60,000 out for bridge supervisor, we need to readjust
No, I would,
perf and insurance. So if we're gonna take the, bridge supervisor out, was that included in the perf and insurance?
well, the perf number that I have printed out for you is only out of county general, so
Okay,
it's not
got
looking
it.
at these. Cause what I was, well, and we can discuss it when we get there, but I was kind of thinking we need to focus on county general, except we need to make the cuts, and then that decision will trickle down to those other funds, so, in some cases. All right, so we went with superintendent. Great. Okay, so another consideration that we need to keep in mind when we start looking at these different plans and options, is the potential for moving maybe some of the correctional officers out of jail lit into county general to help us out with not over budgeting. We haven't overspent yet, but over budgeting in our lit fund. So if we have the opportunity for that, I think this might be the year to try to do that. To kind of keep that in the back of your head. And then we need to decide after we look at these different plans about the considerations of adding new employees and what we want to do there. So kind of keep those on your mind as we look through these. So
Jessica, can I stop you a second?
yeah, absolutely.
So on page 41, since we are, we zeroed out the bridge supervisor and moved Tommy to exempt,
yeah,
we would like to cut the overtime down to 75,000 because Tommy would not be eligible for overtime.
at the overtime, so line 160.
Yes, 160, we would like to make that 75,000.
Now, I'll ask the question. Cause that's only a $25,000 cut. He's probably been be a little bit more than that, probably year over year, but okay, that's fine, never mind.
Well, and depending on what you guys decide to do with raises, I mean, that would, we could cut it even more if the raise doesn't come in, so,
Okay, cool.
okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's under Hume Bridge only,
I'm sorry?
under Hume Bridge only?
Yes, because, Tommy was only paid under Hume Bridge.
Previous.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so let's take a look.
So then I have a couple more.
Yeah, go ahead.
questions To throw out there, because we made an assumption on the chief deputies about the 80 or 85%, right?
I
Um,
went with, I think I went with 80.
Yeah.
So I'll make that note.
This is still a question.
Yeah, so in the numbers you're gonna see, I did put the chief deputies at 85% of the elected official. And we also need to make a consideration for, I think Matt and I looked, what was like 10 people that were really close to maybe needing to be adjusted for that FLSA threshold. So add that to our considerations. All right, anything else, Matt?
Um,
Okay. So if you take.
but yeah, I did want to, sorry. I saw there was a notice about the tax sale being postponed. Do we, is that a revenue hit of any sort for us?
No.
That all goes into that tax sale fund?
No. It goes into a tax bill, fund, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna affect financial position of the county. That's the question. Because there's multiple tax bill funds, that's the reason. I'm not sure which one they're referring to.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
I don't know, there's probably on here, I just noticed that like there's a tax sale surplus fund.
Right.
There's
So the-
redemption fund, a surplus fund, I don't know if there's more, I didn't.
The money that gets on the settlement, I mean, you know, 2 days will, that much. If you wanna look, I mean, if you wanna look at, no,
we can-
Tax sale administration.
Are you wanna get into the hundreds of dollars, or you wanna get into?
Well, I mean, there's 200 and, we started with 250 some $1,000 in that fund,
Which one?
or I'm sorry, 2 million, excuse me. There's a tax sale surplus. 2,844,000, we spent 200, we brought in another 1.7 this year, we spent 200, or 2 million, and there's 2,556,000 as of the end of last year. This is Fund 1205.
otherwise.
Right.
And
It's not gonna affect your decision to operate the county.
No, I know, but again, for how many years has it been that way? I mean,
it's reviewed on a yearly basis for the previous 3 years.
mhm.
So anything that's not been claimed by the previous,
Surplus is a misnomer, kind of.
by the tax sale buyer, that money then, by our office, would then put it into the general fund. But we'd have to other reports from how much that would be.
Yeah.
That's not gonna affect what
I
you're
got
doing now.
Back up, so it's not paid. Sheriff sale, I mean, what
Sheriff
happens,
sale's
Sheriff sales,
totally
Sheriff
different.
sales, if you don't make your house payments, the bank takes it back.
okay, so what happens in the tax sale?
That's if you don't pay your taxes, then,
Right.
then the tax sale buyer is buying the lien, is paying your taxes. for it.
Gotcha.
And that's where it impacts you, because you get, you as the council get to use that money to operate.
And where does that, and what account does that come back? Is there, I mean, it has to be a specific account that says. tax
First, that goes
sale
back to the general fund,
Credit.
because taxes collected goes in the general fund.
Well, the regular tax sale, but any excess that's not claimed after 3 years, goes back into county general, I understand that, but in what account does it come back in? I mean, you can't just say,
Section 12,
it has to be
section
a
of,
credit against
General is
debit.
1,000, so it goes into a revenue into the 1,000.
And that shows up somewhere in here that we can
Yeah,
say,
it would be in your operating balance, or it goes,
so you're saying at some point in time, you can come back to us and say, oh, by the way, via the tax sale non-redemption, the general fund now has a credit of X amount of dollars. You just can't throw it in there and say, here it is.
That we
without
will.
without
We
a-
just bite us
They,
and put it
they
in there.
document, whatever's going into revenue is always documented as what it is, but yes.
This is probably a good point. If any of you would like to come and spend a couple days in the office, we can walk through these kind of questions so that you understand how these things operate.
No, I'm just thinking of paper, something that says, hey,
And we can show you
on a
those
monthly
papers.
basis, you know, we get appropriations, and maybe at some point in time on a month, you can say, oh, by the way, for the purposes of count,
The amount for next year, we estimated at 120,000.
That budget two sheet or form two or whatever it's called. It was a staple packet we got at the beginning of
So it's always accounted for.
thank you, Form
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 B.
two is your revenues, and it's under the county general, and it's under the R code 910, or
Thank you.
910 on your
In from another fund, correct?
I'm sorry.
Transfers in from another fund for 910.
Well, it would have to, because once it sits in the surplus.
That's fine, I just make sure I look at the correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure what read on Form 2. I'm looking at our spreadsheet that we do before we enter it on the Form 2, so. That's correct. Now that I look at it. And that amount on your Form 2 picks up other items besides just the taxable surplus, because we have other items. We have to take all the county general account. Elizabeth and I take all them, and we have to divvy things up according to the proper R number. So we have breakdowns on our spreadsheet of what the individual amounts are, that they come to a bigger grand total here on your.
That was my next question. Is that accumulation of several?
But according to our spreadsheet, the amount I gave you, the 120,000 is our estimate for the tax sale surplus.
So for question, we can come in and just pump it up. Take it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's where these all come from. We have to punch it up prior.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have any other questions for us? All right, so back to the sheet that explains what the different plans are that you're looking at. Now, none of these are set in stone. These are just examples of different ways we can look at this, and I'm 100% expecting us to come up with a completely different plan than any of the things proposed here. This is more of an exercise to understand what those increases look like, and how that could affect FICA perf, just to give us a ballpark. I'd like to leave here today with an idea of what kind of a plan we want to go look at more specifically. I plan to stick around here after this meeting and then go down. Ed said that we can probably get this, everything's in columns, so you should be able to drop some stuff into a spreadsheet. I don't know. I'll come down and we'll talk, and we'll make sure our numbers match up on our stuff too. If you didn't know, by the way, I'm gonna hang out with you later
I
after this.
didn't know.
You're welcome. So like, don't, and for those in the audience or anyone watching, like this was more of an exercise to give us information, not necessarily a plan we have to pick. So keep that in mind. So if you look at the sum of Plan A, this is only focusing on county general, as that's where we need to make a majority of our cuts. I can do the same reporting for any other fund if we want to look at that in the future, but so Plan A, it includes any previous non-salary adjustments we made up until anything that just happened today. No new employees are included in this figure. All of the most of the salaries are at the salary study level or frozen at 2024 levels. This actually kept the public defenders at 50,000. Like I said, this is just for examples. Don't get hung up on this information. Deputy prosecutors at the adjusted scale that Bill and I had originally kind of talked about last week, capped at 20 years, and making sure that the communications center supervisor is at the same rate as the 911 fund supervisors. That's what Plan A looks like. Again, we're missing some information on a couple positions, so it's not 100% accurate, but pretty darn close. So going with Plan A, increases the salaries by 628,626. 627 if we round up, would be a cut from the general request of just over 2.1 million. Plan B, same thing, no, any previously made non-salary adjustments are included. But what we're looking at, I'm sorry, this one here is just the salaries, but I can run the same report with everything. No new employees included. All of these, by the way, include the public defender adjustments that Shelley sent to us on 9/11. These are the midpoints, are frozen at the 2024 salary. If that salary was greater than the midpoint, this puts the public defenders at the 52,000 that Shelley requested. This is the updated scale for the deputy prosecutors with the cap at 20 years. This also includes that communication center supervisor at the same rate as 911. That is a cut of 679,261.25, which increases our 2024 budget by just over 2,050,000. Plan C, same thing with the non-salary adjustments, no new employees, public defender adjustments per Shelley. This is back to the level or frozen at 2024. This takes the public defenders back to 50,000. This is this adjusted scale for the deputy prosecutors, including the communication supervisor as the same as the 911. However, this is giving the sheriff, jail, 911, and the communications their requested salary amount. And then Plan D is the same as Plan C with the addition of the courts at the midpoint. So this is, like I said, this is more of an exercise to kind of see what those numbers are. Oh, so Plan D ends up at a cut from the request at 1,165,000-ish, which is adding to the budget from 2024 about $1.5 million. Again, for everyone, this is an exercise. So I kind of just want to know what your thoughts are and what you want Matt and I to dig into a little bit deeper.
So just to you kind of reiterate one more time.
Yes, what do you want me to reiterate?
Well, I just want to summarize it.
You do it.
The Plan A is basically leveling everybody in a particular category, right? Or leaving them where they were because they don't meet that threshold to level.
You're exceeding the level.
They're already exceeding that level, correct? And then the other things that you talked about. So I asked Jessica to add the added because I want to see how much we're adding from last year as much as we are cutting from this request this year, but that's just my feeble brain. But if you do it in the added column, I think it gives you more of an impact of what the total is. So this is before FICA and perf at $628,000 roughly that we're adding. You add in FICA and perf roughly, probably tacked on another 100 and some thousand. So that's Plan A. That's just simply leveling the salaries. B, I think is everybody gets significant raises, basically, is sort of that one. That would add $2 million. So that's about a $2 million number for everybody to be added to the salary level midpoint or market rate. The Plan C piece is the staying everybody at level outside of sheriff, jail, 911. That would add about $1.4 million. So from everybody leveling to everybody leveling plus public safety, a chunk of public safety. That's 628,000 to 1.5 million. And then Plan D basically is adding courts to that public safety request also, and that would put the add at 1.56 million. So it adds another $100,000 on top of that. So to Jessica's point, I mean, this was a really difficult exercise, okay, to try to figure out how the impact to the overall request looked at. I also want to preface the fact that there's the FICA perf consideration, and we haven't gone through and really, in my opinion, this is a year for people and not a year for asset.
So requests for things that aren't people related, in my mind, need to be relooked and determine if we do more or do less because we return, some of that request money already, we cut it out. We haven't really cut any. So, other than the big bucket item.
Yeah, I mean, from what was requested, we've cut over 2 million. So, I mean, we still have some cutting to do. And I second what Matt's saying on a year for people this year. But I guess, like I said, for me, this is more of an exercise and it was extremely time consuming. So I appreciate Matt assisting with this, tremendously. And, you know, we kind of come up with what we want to look at. At this point, it'll be easier to set up a new, like whatever plan we come up with now. I've got a process in place and formulas built and such now that it's any plan we want to try to look at won't take as many hours as I've spent on this. So
So Tanya?
Yeah.
The adjusted request, like our budget request adjustment, the original request was 44,831,000, right? Yeah.
General, yeah.
So that ending balance, I'm sorry, that's not true. Yeah, our request was 44.8, but in the end, after the over budget number and the operating balance at 6 million, the adjusted request really needs to be, is at 40,947,000.
Like
Probably. I'm just trying to give give everybody okay, what do we need to try to get to, and what we just said about the salaries doing to that number, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you guys are gonna go through this and do it in real time, but I guess I was just trying to throw it out there. If we can,
What'd you get? 40 million? What'd you?
here, I'll just give you this.
you walk her through it.
40,947,000.
Give me this. Oh,
I did,
four number.
yeah. No, well, I guess.
All right, so what's the new Matt? What's the magic number, Matt?
40,947,664. Sorry, 40 million?
No, what?
Oh, that's in essence the adjusted 2025 request number. So it started at 44, but if you take out everything, it's really 40,947,664.
And you know why I was coming up with less by that 968,761 amount. Cause you gotta account for that.
So
May
if that were
fluctuate.
our budget, 40,947,664, we've got, how would we look? Can you look
So I'm
at
trying to
it?
pull up.
And that is with keeping the operating balance at a 6.
6 what?
Yeah.
6 even.
No, 6.5.
That's, his numbers are based on 6 even.
For a $6 million operating.
Yeah. And I think we're still quite high based on what,
Or do we have calculation of where plans A, B, C, and D fall with respect to that number?
Not completely.
if we just did the adjusted column at 42 million, 44, and so
But that's not taking into account those different plans, so I
Yeah.
don't,
have that yet.
stand by. Let's see if I can figure this out. See if we, um, oh, wait. Yeah, we went with 41, well, 41.
Roughly
Oh.
400,000 over. Ballpark.
Oh, 41, okay, here you go, 41.
I guess my point, Bill, just in that is to say, we're gonna be over that 40 million number. We still got to make adjustments,
Yeah,
so
so then I got that, what was it, we're looking at Plan C. Plan C, then FICA and PER is to add 230. That's the total. We would subtract is already. Which have. We'll have.
Jessica's gonna try to do some quick calculation.
Would beat our budget. Correct? Maybe Plan B, I don't know.
Plan B is the most expensive, right? Because it's,
Most- that's
yeah.
right. Because it was a midpoint.
I don't see us ever getting to Plan B. Just, again, based on the numbers as they stand. It would be my recommendation we pursue Plan A and Plan C as options of letting the auditor's office crunch those numbers. I do wanna, while we're chewing on that, I do wanna bring up, couple things here. I've been hounding the auditor's office relative to our operating balance and trying to understand the detail. Relative to our cash flow as it goes out through the course of the year. And so what Ed and Tanya provided to me, which I haven't plugged in, but when Ed was referencing our cash position throughout the course of the year, the biggest dips in our cash position are in April, at the end of April and at the end of October. So he printed off from 2019, basically those ending balances, every year, and then this year just through April, which is usually the lowest. There, right? April's probably the lowest of.
Yes,
pretty
because
much.
that's when our insurance premiums due for the year, like yearly.
Okay.
Again,
So I'd like to chart this a little bit just so it's easy to read, but in 2024, started the year at 9.5 million. We had revenue during that time. That in that quarter, year to date was the $5 million revenue number. And then the year to date expenses were 12,655,000, leaving us at the end of April with a balance of 2,265,000. Now last year,
those numbers were significantly different. Last year, we started with the beginning balance, this is 2023, of 8.9 million. We didn't bring in nearly the number of, or the amount of revenue in it. Yeah, we went from we must have not gotten,
Well, we didn't get the, federal inmates till what, July of last year?
no, this is the difference in
Oh.
year-to-date revenue. This year, we got oh no, that, it was a couple $1 million difference. But let me just read it off. So the beginning balance at the beginning of 2023 was 8.9 million. We had revenue of 3.6. We had expenses of 12.2 and an ending balance of 254,000. According to the, trying to figure out is where
What was the final number?
254,042.
The end of April, right?
Our revenue was about 2 million less than it was the year prior at that particular. Do we know why that was?
No. If you look back a couple of years though, you'll see that April is down to like and less.
A couple years prior, right? Yeah.
I think, remember you had, at least $2 million in interest from ARP money.
In 2024, this year.
Yeah, you had $2 million in interest in ARP money, then prior to that, you had, you guys had COVID money that,
Earning interest.
yeah, was earning interest too. So just, I don't know if that's it, but possibly.
So our October 31 balance ended up at being 4.2 million. So, you know, we made up. 2022, we started with a beginning balance of 8.4 million. We had net expenses or net revenue of that year at that particular time, April 30th, of 3.8 million roughly. Expenses of more like 10.3. So we had an ending balance in 2022 in April of 1,841,000.
Can I have you take a look at the report, the dated through April 30th of 2020?
30th. COVID. Okay.
There's two numbers I want you to look at. One is the ending balance, which is how much?
14,201.
What's the beginning balance?
6,500,000. This is your emergency year?
I'm just saying, based off of history, 6.5 is good. A number of that is as close to running out of money. Now, we've been using 6, and 6 may be the right number. But you're talking about increasing spending by $1 million, which means it's gonna take $500,000 in a 6-month period to spend that, correct? You're gonna spend $500,000 more every 6 months. That means you're gonna need more money, so your operating balance would have to increase by $500,000. That's my math.
Well, in 2022, the ending balance in October was, and in April it was 1.8. It was 3.9 in October. Those are the largest dip. And, you know,
So
that,
let's talk about that, April 21. Is that what you referred to, or was it April?
that was 22 I was talking about. In April of 21, it was 1.4 million. April of 22, 1.8. April of 23, 254,000. Again, I mean, to me, that's a huge anomaly. Sure, there's a reason. And then this year, currently at the end of April, it was a 2.26. So again, to me, that's a trend. if April's our lowest point, which is, you know, in
Right, so-
2019, it was $76,000.
So if you go to 22, let's use that because you brought it up. The beginning balance was 8.4. The ending balance 1.8. So if you look at the difference, it's 6.6 million.
Yep.
This is the reason I'm saying 6.5 is the right number. Now, if you want to learn that, that's your choice.
No, I'm just playing through the exercise.
But if you look at each April, now you just subtract the beginning balance from the ending balance, that gives you the number.
And if you even look at it this year, so 9.5 is our start, 2.2 is our end, that's, you know, close to 7 million right
And
there.
in some cases it's worse, and 23 was even worse. But I guess it's better.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Anybody have any thoughts?
Only thought I have is that more is going to start being spent. So the money that you're earning on that, going to increase just due to the fact of it in the next 6 minutes.
Commissioner Henry, you're using that art money on that rehabilitation center, right?
Yes, we're using some,
Yeah.
not all of it, but yeah, there's different projects right now in the art plan that, are currently underway.
That ARP interest money still currently goes into county general?
Currently,
For next year, it's still in county general?
as of today it is.
That could change tomorrow.
Right.
How does that change? Or what's the mechanism that changes, excuse me?
The ordinance from the commissioners. We had planned on using interest money for the rehabilitation center.
Again, at a high level, we're adding 3+ million to our budget for next year, currently. While our revenues have increased because of interest, or minor factors potentially. Nobody expect that to be the case, right? They're already slated to pull back $968,000 from us from the MAC levy for next year, so our revenues are not, they look great currently, but they're not necessarily great long.
I appreciate the concept of the various plans, and I understand the auditor, you're gonna work with the auditor to kind of get the best numbers possible out of those. What would be helpful to me, where we have choices, I'd like to see sort of a menu.
Okay.
So you have a choice of either level or frozen salaries or midpoint salaries, right? So that would be sort of across the board. You would have a choice of the adjusted deputy prosecutor plan versus the update plan, and what the difference would be there. And then, it's not clear to me, in plan A, we're not just talking about plan B, if in plan A, how are we treating public safety?
And plan,
They're only leveled. So if there's any change, if there's any difference in salary between
their midpoint or
corrections
frozen.
officers or whatever, no, he asked plan A.
Oh, plan A, everyone's leveled. Plan
And
B
then my
is
next question-
midpoint or frozen.
And then in plan C, they're treated as requested.
Only sheriff, jail, 911 and
Right.
yeah.
Is there, have we costed out what midpoint would be for those?
I can do that.
I mean, would that be different than the request? I
It's
don't.
not dramatic, so I got a we can do a sampling of it, if you just look at this, right? So from a deputy standpoint, if in 2024, the deputies make 53, their level would be about 55, so it'd be roughly $1,500 raise. Their midpoint on the salary study is 61,138, and the request from the department was 61,1.
Slightly under.
And I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, you did mostly, or Nancy, you guys did the midpoint roughly, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
911 did as
If we could have, show the difference of those individual pieces.
Yeah.
And just A and C would be fine with me, but, you know, that would be a
Okay.
good starting.
Between gentlemen on this side of the bench.
That include, Plan C does not include court.
Correct.
But it would be helpful to see what the difference is between the court
I can add them.
level.
Yep.
Again,
Okay.
a consideration. And the same would be true of the public defender,
Do you want,
leveling versus midpoint on that as
do you
well.
want to see this at like a high level by just the department, or do you want me to have the department and then the salary lines broken out below it? I can do either. Or both. I can do it, I mean, I can send you guys a pivot table and you can, you know how to, I don't know how familiar you are with Excel, but I can send you the file.
That'd be an overload for me.
I'll send you a screenshot.
Again, I think to me, I'm still dealing with concepts, and so the gross amount
is enough.
is the starting point for
Yep.
me, and then obviously you have to fill in, the, individual department.
Okay, I can do that.
So does Plan C or D include leveling up on the other
Yes,
employees?
yeah, it's level for everyone or frozen at 24 if you already exceeded that level salary.
And public safety as requested, then D is public safety and courts as requested.
Correct. So on the salary study that we received from WIS, there were columns, let's flip it over, that had the internal level. So what they were figuring out is based on your classification and rank, what your hourly salary is, and so that was, right, yeah, not everyone does. So,
That in essence also sets the base pay for that position too.
yeah, because it's at a hourly rate, so currently, since we have some employees at a 40-hour versus some at 32, but they do similar jobs, it's the same hourly rate, but the person working 40 makes more than the person
I
32
think
and a
it
half.
Low internal and a.
There was external. So you had your internal base, that was the leveling.
That's
So,
the level.
yeah,
Okay.
internal base
Internal.
is your level. And then the external analysis they did had an external low, an external midpoint, and an external high. And so we were focusing primarily on the balancing of everyone in, that's like step one. And then midpoint was the other part. So, and I know some departments put in an internal rate, some did the midpoint, but which is part of the reason I put that big $1 million in our line item, just so we had the wiggle room in the budget to make changes accordingly. It gave us more flexibility. So does
Well,
that
I
answer your
know-
question, Sheriff?
We have not, figured, all the pike and perf according to the adjustment made
I
today
did.
and stuff. You probably have, but I have not.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm showing like general, thus far, we've cut 2,461,181.
Again,
2,461,181.
Yeah, and I'm at 2.9. So we'll
That
see.
includes some, like
Yeah.
how Shelley had hers, and I
Yeah.
wrote that amount down and then
Yeah.
punched it in, but for like the others that I don't.
I'll come
have
hang
them.
out with you and we'll take a look. And I think Matt,
Have- got
I was
more.
at 2.9, but
That makes sense. You know what I mean?
so we'll take a look at it. 'Cause Matt and I have been working off the same spreadsheet. Every time I make any adjustments, I just send it to him, so he has the most recent copy too.
Let's talk about like the next step. You're gonna get with the auditor at minimum, to plug in these scenarios.
Correct.
Adding FICA perks, see where those end up. That will give us our gross totals, I think, Bill, if that works out with them. But then subsequently, in my opinion, the next step then is take that. We also need to probably go line by line item, because there are some things that even though we've leveled them, or there's an FLSA consideration
Yeah,
on
we're
some
gonna have to-
employees, we've got
We're gonna
lots
have to
of
spend
tweaks.
a long day or more than a quick, 2-hour meeting. We're going to have another, in my opinion, and I think Matt agrees that at this point, we do need to make sure line by line by line, we're all on the same page.
With the department heads, unfortunately.
Yes,
Because,
yeah.
because there's some other, I mean, even in the jail or wherever, it's, there's some considerations that people have brought to our attention that we're trying to do this at a bulk level currently. Then we need to get to to get to the granularity of it, and then come to that final decision just on the employee portion. And
I
then,
would like the next is like, very important to accomplish the most of this because of AIC conference the following week.
terrible timing for the conference.
It always,
Could we expedite, could we, take the time at some point, either collectively or individually, to identify non-employee items that we want to question, so we can let the office holders, department heads know in advance, hey, we want to talk about your computers and your postage and your
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might.
Yeah.
So so we don't have to go through the entire budget yet again.
I kind of did that initially with the salary piece, and I can do that. If you guys are open to just letting me create the notes for each department.
Well, and if we have any items that we've identified, get them to you
Yeah.
in the
That'd be
next
fine.
few days.
You wanna, start the email and send it out?
Right.
Like, do we wanna look at maybe,
Because sorry, real quick,
you're fine.
because that was where I was going next, Bill, was the second step
Oh, okay.
being the going through and getting that number cleaned up, because that will impact. She may come back, we'll have made no adjustments to non-employee pieces. She'll come back with a number that's gonna be elevated because we haven't made any other cuts, right? So that's gotta be.
Do we wanna look at like a,
In my own world over here.
Can we go back for a second?
Yeah.
On insurance, we've been on the phone this morning after you had some questions. Right now, apparently, next door, they pay a substantial higher rate than we do. So
Employees do, or
they do.
how many employees do they?
I don't know how many they have. It is possible to, combine employees. There's state legislation passed recently that allows that. However, it takes a couple years and there has to be a trust form for that. You guys have agreed to, right now, the 10%'s in, correct?
yeah,
Um,
kinda has to be.
some point here in the near future, I know we gotta get the budget done and everything, but we will have an insurance roundtable that all the elected officials will be, asked to come, and we can go next door and sit around the table with our insurance company and talk about.
And ask the questions.
Yep.
And then moving forward from that meeting, yeah, I want all the council, all the commissioners, and be there to discuss this insurance. And then moving forward from that day on, we'll have an insurance committee for all of this.
Beautiful. Yep, I think that's great.
So, but I appreciate if it does go through, the 10%.
Yeah. Okay, so,
On that topic, could I jump in real quick?
yes, of course.
Didn't we also agree as a council that we would look at funding additional money to the insurance program?
I don't know, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations, so, I know they were talking about that other account, how it needing some money in there or whatever, but
Bring it up to your level.
I'll add it to my list of considerations.
I mean,
Because,
if it's a choice, that's one thing. If we really don't have a choice, because we're underfunded.
Do you mean in this budget that we're
Yes.
working on? I mean, I wrote down that we were increasing the health insurance line for the commissioner's budget. Is that what you're talking about?
no, he's talking about
On
the
top
other,
of-
the
on top of
fund
that, I
that
thought
money
we-
moves into. There's like the,
Will be, that'll be asked for in the September council meeting pertaining to this year. So, like, looking at that, that's kind of the big, point of view for next year's budget, the fact that it means increase.
Is 1159, is that the fund for health insurance?
No, 40, you're probably not gonna have it because you're looking at expenses. And
No, I'm looking at
say
the-
4701, revenue.
Yeah, I see it here. Oh, employee benefit trust?
Yeah.
Okay. That's just the inflow outflow of the health insurance money, right? Is what we put in,
Correct.
I don't recall saying that. I just, when we talked about probably the need to potentially have increased in the premium, amount, but. Because I mean, so the ARP interest was a question. The sheriff, not the sheriff, the chief deputies, still was the question. The lit movement, just as a reminder, we are apparently one of few counties who our lit is completely tied up in people. So when we over budget, or if God forbid we overspent, the only thing to do is move bodies out of it or eliminate those bodies, because that's the way our lit currently is distributed. So, to me, that leaves zero room for maneuvering with lit. So for whatever that's worth. And so, capital projects, investment in IT, all the things we talked about relative to the 10 to 14 million we put on the table for the next 5 years that are needed in public safety primarily, and even in the courts and other areas. There's no $14 million coming in the door here.
all right, so kind of going back to talking about next meeting, are we thinking maybe like come in morning of the 18th and work until we're done? Cause that way that gives the auditor's office some time to make any adjustments we make and get some information back to us.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Don't we have like some AIC training coming up? Is anyone going to that?
Yeah. 23rd.
Okay, that's the week after that.
Where's that at?
Belter.
Oh, that's the AIC.
Yeah. Not either. Anyone from the auditor's office going to that AIC conference?
Okay.
Okay. So we probably want to try to nip some of this in the bud. We think does the 18th work for everyone?
I was even thinking the 17th, I'm not sure if we're having a count, like, in April.
No, we're going to do a couple. It won't be all of them.
I mean,
I think Wednesday's probably the best.
You want to?
I've got multiple meetings on
Because
Tuesday.
Wednesday's probably the best. So. Can council be available on that day?
I can be here till noon.
Okay.
Start at 8:30.
All right.
8:30.
Yeah. Let me just write this down. So the 18th at 8:30. And we'll work as much as we can, and Eugene, if you have to leave, we'll keep you posted on whatever, so. Okay, Sheriff,
My colleague and I,
your best.
and I don't mean to prolong this meeting, I'd like to bring up two things that are real quick. One of them is my jail commander. Recently, when they redid the job descriptions, he went from non-exempt to exempt, and I challenged that. And I don't know why he did that, but right now, it's slated that he's exempt, or will be. He makes about probably $10,000 a year in overtime. He works about 50 hours a week. This is on page 21 on my book on the top line. If he receives the 2025 requested salary, compared to what he's at this year at 2024 with overtime, he'll be taking a pay cut. So I don't know if it's possible to bump that requested salary up.
So I
or-
think this will be for that Wednesday meeting, any of the departments, if you have any of those one-offs like that, cause I know there's
Okay.
probably a handful, like have those like listed and ready to go. Cause
Okay.
if we're gonna go line by line by line,
Okay.
like that's the time we can address all those,
Alright.
cause you're not alone in that. There's some other little one-offs here and there, and like we need to make sure Jamie's here with the Board of Health, cause there were some lines that weren't matching up with anything on our thing, so.
Line item was that you're talking about?
I'm on page 21, the top line, the captain in the jail.
Okay, thanks.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I had talked to Matt briefly, but we still have a little bit of wiggle room in our anticipated revenue from the jail. We're only at about 950,000 for next year, and I know we're gonna bring in a ton more than that. So if that helps us to get to Plan C or even Plan D, we can increase that if that helps you guys.
Okay.
So I'm throwing that out there right now. If it helps us to get to that point, we can help you with that.
Okay. And that's kind of what happened with Brad last year, right? When the treasurer came and was like, hey, like this is probably a more realistic number. So if you have those,
Well, I have that. I'm telling you, I mean, we
But
could
what-
probably comfortably add 150 or 200,000. If that helps,
okay.
Yeah.
150 to 200,000.
for anticipated revenue, just on the federal side. So, all right, that's what I'll do.
Gavin Green Corner. Do you want, would the council like us to submit, help speed up the process next week? If we have any wiggle room in our budget to submit those cuts to you?
That would be great.
So
That's
that
what
we
Shelley
don't-
and Eric did with us just this past week.
Okay.
So if you have anything, if you've gone back and looked, I mean, we're really trying here. So,
Okay.
I mean, you gotta help us help you because we want to do this. We
Yeah.
want to do this. So if
Okay.
you have anything, just email all of us.
Yep.
So we can all adjust our books accordingly.
Do you want us to send you the new, the budget we submitted with the new, or just send you the line item and say, hey, reduce it by
Either
this
way,
amount? Okay.
Yep.
All right,
whichever's easiest. Oh, but
Copy Tanya.
Yes, that's what I was gonna ask. If anyone could copy us on the numbers, that is, appreciated very
Okay.
much.
so you have the copy.
Yeah. 'cause
So
it's
do you want-
hard. You guys have it and then I have
Yeah.
to wait till right now.
Does it need to go to
To
you,
do it.
Keita and Elizabeth, or
That
does
would
it?
be lovely.
Okay.
Whitney's out on maternity leave. She had a boy.
We had a baby! Yay! We had a baby. So, okay, so takeaways here, if you know of adjustments, send those to council along with Elizabeth, Tanya, and Keita. Council, if you have any additional questions about particular line items and such, get those emailed to Matt. I'll work with the auditor's office and see what we can come up with kind of versions of A and C and see what that looks like grand total to get an idea, and we'll maybe take that consideration of the sheriff's anticipated revenue increasing a little bit as well. Perfect. All right, is there anything else we have or any questions? 8:30 a.m. Yes, please. Okay. All right, well, with that, we will recess until Wednesday, the 18th at 8:30 a.m. Have a great day.